Alright, I've run into a very interesting problem because, you know, Corrado. Lily dog. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. We know you have lots of choices when it comes to people filming videos of really weird cars doing obscure repairs. So we're glad that you've chosen us to watch. Anyway, thanks. My name's Brendan, aka Cliffjumper. Thanks for tuning in. In our last episode, we were starting to get the transmission fluid on the Corrado VR6 changed. We ran into the slight setback that the filter that was sent to me as a guaranteed fit was in fact the wrong filter. I figured out later on that it was a filter from a Mk4 2.0 automatic transmission, the 01M code, and the one that's in the Corrado VR6 is an 096. It does share the same gasket and pan, so I could swap on the lower pan from a different transmission if I really wanted to, but it does not have the same filter. So now I have the filter in hand to do the job. We're going to go ahead, put the new filter on, finish cleaning it up, or other way around, finish cleaning up and then put the filter on, get the new gasket and pan in place, and refill it with fluid. There's a particular procedure that you have to follow. Now, I've been looking at a few different resources. There is, of course, the Bible, aka the Bentley Manual, that tells you how to do it. And then there are a lot of experienced techs online that have posted hints of how to do this procedure so that it works better than the factory procedure, which is apparently lacking a couple of steps. So we're going to go through that, and hopefully in just a couple of short hours, we will have a fully functional Corrado again with fresh transmission fluid. Now, here's the one thing that you always run into whenever you service an automatic transmission, and this is especially if you have a transmission with a lot of miles on it. The old transmission fluid could be hiding wear that you are unaware of. When you change out the fluid and you put new fluid in, it has some detergent qualities to it that can clear out gunk in your transmission, which sounds like a great thing, and that would be something you would want. But a lot of times the gunk could be smoothing over wear in your transmission, and by clearing out the gunk, you can actually make the transmission run poorly. I found this to be the case with our Toyota Sienna that had 180,000 miles on it. We decided to do a transmission fluid change right before going on a cross-country adventure in it, and it was running fine up until the moment we changed the fluid. As soon as we changed the fluid, it started stuttering and giving us all sorts of weird problems, and it turned out that it was that exact issue. There was wear in the transmission, and the old gunky fluid was keeping it running correctly. So this is kind of the double-edged razor of transmissions. If you've got an older transmission and it's running fine, some mechanics will say, don't change the fluid, don't change the filter, leave it alone, and just never change that stuff until you absolutely have to. Well, what would make you absolutely have to? Well, say it starts to run strangely, or it starts to slip as it's going into gear, or doesn't go into gear properly. Then you might have a blocked filter, and it might be possible to resuscitate a little bit of life into that transmission by changing the filter and the fluid. You might be able to breathe a little bit more life into an automatic transmission that way. It's only going to cost you, like 50 or 60 bucks to get the fluid and the filter and the gasket and do that work. And I think it's worth the gamble, if you have a transmission that is failing, to see if you can get a little bit more life out of it that way. Otherwise, your alternative is a transmission swap, which can be $1,000 or more. or if you do the work yourself, you know, it's still a few $100 for a used transmission, and you're taking a chance on a used transmission that it is actually going to work. You never know if it will or not. In the case of the Corrado, as I've shared with you, it's got 203,000 miles on it. It has been a long time since I've serviced this transmission, and over the last couple of weeks I have noticed some odd behaviors from the transmission. Now, they may be electric in nature, they may just be that I needed to clean up some of the sensor connectors, or it could be some internal stuff happening with the solenoids, and either way, I have a 6-speed manual transmission waiting to go into the car. So if this transmission is messed up, then not a big deal. I've got a manual ready to go. So I figured I would just take a chance on it, put in a new fluid, new filter, clean out all the electronic connectors, and we'll see. We'll see if it works okay, and we'll just take it through the procedure, warm it up properly, fill it up properly, make sure that all the little sections are charged, and we'll see how it goes. So worst comes to worst, I have to do a manual swap. Oh no! Don't make me put the manual 6-speed in the car! Anyway, let's see how it goes. Alright, so here, before we get back underneath the bottom and actually put the pan and the gasket and the filter all back in place, we are going to take care of some stuff up top here. Now, we were having some strange readings from the sensors, and we're going to go ahead and clean these electrical connectors here. So I've got these two main connectors. There's one on the very back of the transmission, which with the shift rod in place is very difficult to get to. So we're actually going to remove that shifter cable, move it out of the way to be able to get to that connector, and then we're going to be using some electronic cleaner to just clean up the contacts, and we'll probably use just a little bit of connector protector to keep them from developing more corrosion, as they are pretty exposed to the elements. So we're going to go ahead and get that bolt right back there out of the way, and we'll have access to that connector. Okay, so we have unconnected all those sensors on the transmission. I actually found one on the very back of the transmission that I didn't see the first time through, and I'm pretty sure that was the electronic speed sensor, so kind of important. Go ahead, and that had a lot of corrosion on it. I mean, it was green and nasty, so put the cleaner on it. I actually hit it with a little bit of a brush, steel brush, just to get rid of some of that corrosion. Hit it with the what is this stuff, connector protector, and that should be all right. So it looks like that'll definitely carry a current better than it previously did. And so now all the top stuff is buttoned up. Now that's all is left is to put in the new filter and the new gasket. By the way, yes, R2D2. The new gasket may or may not come with the crush washers, or I should say the anti-torque washers that go in here. So you have to pull them out of your old gasket. I've already done so. They just pop right out. Use a screwdriver to push them out. They're not glued in place or anything. And press them into your new gasket. What this does is it protects the pan and the gasket itself from over-torquing it. So when you install this, you only want to tighten it to when you feel it tighten against those washers, and then give it like 1/8 of a turn more. That's it. That's all you need to do on that. So we'll install the filter, then the gasket and the pan, and then we'll start to fill it. And there's a particular procedure for filling it. A few years ago, I actually did one of these transmissions with a friend of mine, and I did not know about the specific procedure, neither did he. And so we just put the fluid in and checked the level and called it a day, and drove it, and it drove horrible. It had all sorts of problems. It didn't shift smoothly from second to third. It didn't go to gear sometimes, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. We thought we'd gotten a bad transmission, so we actually took that transmission back and traded it for another transmission and installed that. So it was a lot of work, and at the end of the day, when I look back, and I find out that you actually have to warm the transmission up and then check the fluid again after it's warm, while you also do a special thing where you, well, I'll take you through it, but you have to keep your foot on the brake, put it into gear, and run it through all the gears for a few seconds in each gear to get fluid through all of the solenoids and all of the little places in the transmission, the valve body, and then you check the fluid level. Now, it's really important not to underfill or overfill these transmissions, because either one will make it work really weird. So we'll get to that in a sec. All right, one last step before we put the filter in here. We're gonna hit it with some brake cleaner one last time. It's been draining. It's pretty clean. I've already hit it with brake cleaner. I'm gonna hit it with just a little more, just to make sure there isn't anything that's crept in there while this has been open. All right, so it's pretty good. Gonna go ahead and wipe the surface where the gasket's gonna go, and then we should be good to start reinstalling stuff. Go right there. It's unlike the Mark III filters, it doesn't like have anything that wedges in place. It's just these two bolts that hold it in. And actually, I like these a lot better than the Mark III design, because you don't have to worry about another weird little gasket falling apart on you. And this is, it's either secure or it's not. So fairly easy to deal with here. And again, the general rule of thumb, it does not need to be Kung Fu Voodoo Monkey Death Grip tight, just tight. So I'm going to take the same rule of thumb as the gaskets that are going to go in the pan, and tight, and 1/8 of a turn. And that should be good here. I think we're good. All right. Just where it gets tight, and 1/8 of a turn, and this one tight and 1/8 of a turn, and we're done. So let's start putting some fluid in. Now, conveniently, on the VR6, it has a fill tube up top, so you don't have to worry about any weird plug on the side. Now, there are some plugs that you could use if you really wanted to, but you don't need to. So I'm gonna do a trick, and I'm gonna double stack. I've got a part of what is this? It's a turkey baster that I use for removing brake fluid from brake reservoirs. I just took the bulb off of it, stick my funnel in the end of that. Gives me another few inches, so I can get it conveniently from up top there. And if I really wanted to get all crazy, I could make it even wider with one of these. So that's exactly what I'm going to do here. And now comes the part where we have to do math. You see, Volkswagen specs out their stuff in liters, and it comes in quarts if you get aftermarket brand. Now, I could have gotten the Volkswagen stuff, which does come in liter bottles, but I read a lot of really good things about this mobile. It does list Volkswagen, or I should say they are certified with Volkswagen as an original equipment replacement, so this is fine. And we're gonna go ahead and use this Mobile 1. It's the multi-vehicle synthetic blend automatic transmission fluid. So this is 0.946 milliliters instead of 1 liter. Ooh, and it is not wonderful smelling. Filling up. Let's go ahead and check underneath for leaks. I'm going to have a little bit from spilling stuff, but we're not going to look at those as evidence of leaks because I had spilled stuff before while we were doing all of this. And we're going to look around. There's some stuff I could wipe up just to make sure it's not using us. It's always a good idea to clean, so let's do that. Alright, we're gonna go ahead and fire her up. We have to let it run up to temperature and then we can monitor it with the computer. So using VCDS from Rostec with a 2x2 connector adapter for this old OB1, and we'll be able to monitor it, get it up to proper temperature, and then check the fill level and adjust at that point. And as long as I'm down here, I'm noticing my motor mount is in pretty bad shape. So probably about time for a front motor mount, which means it's probably time for rear motor mounts as well. But yeah, something to look into for another project. All right, so I got her started. All I did was unplug the main connector and just plug it back in, make sure it was really secure. I apparently hadn't secured it all the way down in place. You know, go figure, 25-year-old, almost 30-year-old electronics, but now she's running, which means I can run VCDS, and there's a particular thing you have to do here. And what we need to do is monitor the temperature of the transmission. Now, while you can see the 2x2, this is a special OBD1 connector adapter that Rostec sells. It goes to your regular OBD2 connector and then into your laptop. And so we're connecting, and what I need to do is look for the temperature. In the meantime, in order to properly fill this transmission, here's one thing that you have to do. So you're letting it warm up and without it being in gear, but what you're going to do is put your foot on the brake, and you are going to put it in each gear for about 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'm just going to roll it through all of the positions for about 10 seconds. And that's just going to get fluid running through all the different parts of the valve body inside the transmission while it is warming up. And then when it is completely warmed up, I'll be able to check it while it's running and check the fluid level. So I'm just going to go through, actually I'm going to take it all the way back to first gear here and let it roll through that for about 10 seconds. And again, keeping the brake on it prevents the wheels from moving. It is putting the transmission under load very slightly, but that's gonna force the fluid through all the nooks and crannies and make sure that we are good to go. And after we're done here, we will run it up to speed as well, which generally not recommended on jack stands. So you know, you just want to make sure that you're clear of anything that you know might get damaged. I'm not running it on a dyno or something, so it won't be under load, but running the transmission and letting everything whir and do its thing is gonna be helpful for making sure that everything is working the way it is supposed to. All right, I did finally find the place in VCDS where it had the transmission temperature, and it's warmed up to the minimum temperature that it needs to be, which is 35 Celsius. Actually, we're more than that, so we're good. And now we're just gonna check the level on the fluid. Since this does have a dipstick, it makes it way easier than a lot of other transmissions where you have to do a special thing by filling it until it starts to pour out the fill plug, and then a certain amount of glugs you have to count. It's obnoxious, but this one's way easier. So we're just going to check the fluid level, adjust it, and she'll be good to go. All right, so got our dipstick down here. Let's see where we're at. Looks like we're a little bit past the fill mark, so we may have to suck a little bit of fluid out of there. With the fluid vacuum pump. Yeah, it looks like we're yeah, maybe a half quart too much, which is interesting because I didn't put in even quite the amount that the Volkswagen recommended. But look, it's up to the top of the dipstick past the fill mark. So maybe we'll just take it for a quick run and then check the fluid level. And if I need to use a vacuum pump with one of those tubes to stick it down there and pull a little out, it's not a problem. We can do that pretty easily. All right, let's see how we do here. So transmission's up to temperature, and theoretically everything should be working here. So let's just give it a whirl and see. We're driving into the setting sun this time of day, which is good time fun. All right, again, we're just gonna row through the gears here. So starting in first. Second. Third. That's good. Fourth. All right, we have forward motion. I'm gonna leave it in drive. And anyway, so thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you spending the time watching. I hope that you're finding it entertaining, if not informative and helpful. And please go ahead and hit like and subscribe. I don't know how many people actually hit the notification bell on this. I hear a lot of other people asking our viewers to do that, but you do it or not, I don't really care. But just as a reminder, if you do feel like what I'm doing is something that you might like to support, please feel free to head over to my Patreon channel and or webpage, whatever, and you know, help me out. Sign up to be a sponsor. That'd be fantastic. And till next time, thanks for tuning in. God bless. See you soon.